Good morning, people, or good evening, good day. Even though it's a bit less cold than it was during the last weeks. I got a bit of a cold myself now, and I decided to stand here in my wintry gear, but don't let this distract you too much. Well, I promised to do something about the Swiss popular vote, which is today at, what do we have today? February 12th, 2017. As I pointed out earlier, in Switzerland we have 4 to 5 times some popular votes a year, 4 to 5 times a year. So it's pretty much a routine job. More than half of the people don't want to do, by the way. I can understand it, it can be tedious, but the problem is if you don't go voting, you have to stick with the stuff others are deciding, and very often the less people are going to vote, the worse the result is actually getting in terms of general continuity of well, however you call it. Anyway, I don't want talk in favor of the established values all the time, by the way. Just as a general remark, there have been quite good corrective influences of the popular votes in the past, and there will be in the future. And even if things turned bad, well, yeah, I've seen from the countries around that this is not always a problem of the popular vote, but politicians not being under the pressure of constant popular votes aren't doing everything better. Faster, by the way, it can be faster, but fast is not always good. Yeah, what do we have now? I'm sticking to this. I have a short talk about the popular vote in the state here. That's this flag. That's not a big deal actually. And I will point out very briefly what we have in at the national level. That's this flag over here. And on the map, this is the state I live in. It's just this size. These are 300 kilometers from here to here. So you can guess this is not actually big. But for Switzerland, it's somewhere in the middle, somewhere in between. Not so much population, quite a rural area, but still quite a lot of smaller industry and even high-tech scattered around. Between the villages you find lots of industry. There are even computers built in here, sensors, trains. Funny, sort of, when you think there are only farmers. In between there is a company building trains for half of Europe, and I think even other continents, by the way, by now. So whatever, that's rambling. And actually, let's look at the vote in the state now. We had some, in the village, some elections, but actually that was elections for the school. So it's quite a local thing. It's not much to say about. It might be interesting if you're interested in the local politics, because they actually didn't even have a candidate for the position. So yeah, no idea what will happen. quite likely we have to do it again in a couple of weeks. But on the state level, and state, I mean it's nearly as independent as the states in the USA, not that to that extent, but it goes in this direction. So it's not just the province where the capital is actually directing everything. So we have quite some power on the local level, even more on local level, of course, because there are always less people. At the other hand, it's just the budget of the state, so there's also less money and less general power around. Well, in the state it was no big deal, as I said. Actually, there was a federal law about preserving land and dividing land into land you can build something, land you can build industry, land you can only build houses for people living, and land for farmers with very restricted rules. And actually that federal law in general says that there has to be certain things have to be taken in account, and actually the state law is actually saying the same, basically. So I think that will not be a big deal. It just says that the way how the use of the land has to be organized should be how is this zweckmäßig Haushalter? It has to be taken care that it makes sense in general, and it has to be efficient. You see, Switzerland is a small country, as I pointed out in my video about Switzerland in general. The well easily inhabitable parts are here. This is about here, and some a bit south here, because the whole part here is the Alps, mountains. In here too, here are the French Alps, here Austrian Alps. So we have to say roughly 1/3 of the country is mostly plain. So we have to take care about what we do with the land. There is not so much. Even more in the mountains, because there are just the valleys. You can see it just here. Wherever you see the big streets, you see one here, you see one here, you see one going there, and one down here, and one here again. Roughly where you see the streets, it's inhabitable. Here you can't build much. You can build some shelters up in the mountains, yes, but that's about it. And the same is for farming. It's very hard to farm up here, up here, up here, up here. You can't farm very much at 4,000 meters in Central Europe. That's probably like farming in Alaska. Yeah, not so great. Or for short time. So, of course, what we have to do with our land is always a big deal, a big discussion. But after all, we have a quite good consensus in general that we have to be careful. We have to look. We have to make sure that when you can build a house, it should be efficient. So let's get over to the national stuff. There has been more discussion, quite far more discussion, but it goes partly in the same problem. It's the discussion about immigration, or about, I guess in the USA it's called naturalization, so getting Swiss citizenship. It was one discussion, and this is always a discussion about how many people can live in our small country. This is very controversial, as you know, probably even in countries 100 times bigger than ours and having millions of square kilometers of uninhabited land, the discussion is already very, very strong. So you can guess what's happening in a small country here. Number one is how should people living in the third generation here, how they should get a Swiss passport if they want. And actually the idea is just to make it a bit easier. There is already some system to make it the easy way, and actually this system should just extend it sort of to people whose grandparents came to Switzerland and the family is living here since then. Because they are here in school, they speak the language and so on. So quite a couple of tests can be omitted. And well, you probably hear it, I think this is quite reasonable and sounds like very technical stuff. Okay, their parents went to school here and so on, so it's easy. But quite a few aspects apply, of course. They have to speak the language, and they have to accept the constitution and so on. It does not mean that they don't have to do this. It's just that it can be assumed they already are doing this because they are living here for their whole life, and even their parents did. But if they don't get a passport still. So, but the discussion, of course, got dragged to the whole problem we had. We had some propaganda showing people in burqas and so on. And well, it's a very rare case that somebody whose grandparents went here, whose parents grew up here, and who grew up here himself or herself in case of the niqab, would actually wear a niqab completely from head to foot and see herself or himself as part of the strongest Salafist movements. Okay, there are people doing this, but these are genuinely Swiss, having the Swiss passport for 500 years and converted to the Salafism now. Those people are doing this, and you can't take away the passport from them anymore. So it's actually, I have to think that younger people from the third generation, and those are 90% or 80% Italians or so, also Catholics, not really Muslims, because there are not so many Muslims living here in the third generation. So I guess there was a bit of distraction in the whole process. And this distraction was, of course, very planned and not accidental. And people not complying with the Swiss constitution will not get the passport, or generally not, except if they are very good in hiding it. So the rules are not broken, they still apply. Generally it was just meant to make it a bit easier, because quite a few things we know that they know it, and they don't have to do all the tests in all detail. Yeah, second one, that comes again in the discussion about the land, because it's the financing of streets, roads, and the national roads, so the roads paid by the federal government. And you can see mostly the big ones in orange. I'm not sure, of course it's quite small, the map, but it's not so important. It's just normally the highways, the national highways, and some streets going to these highways or being nearly a highway, or some cantonal streets now paid by the federal government. It was just the original question was, how do we organize this? there was a reorganization of the financing of the railroads and all the public transport 1 or 2 years ago. It was built quite the same way now the financing of the streets should be done. And of course, this triggered quite a lot of discussions. One is always the thing, a road needs land, we should use it for farming, we should not use it for streets. So this discussion, but another discussion, of course, is now the ecological discussion. Because, of course, if the financing of the streets is organized in a good way, and there is quite a lot of money there to build, to repair, to do the stuff, and the government is not forced to ask for every step, for every meter they want to repair, for every kilometer they want to build, to close a gap and so on. If they aren't required to ask for every detail again, this is some control gets lost by the parliament and by the people, yeah, of course, and they don't like it, especially the ones opposing every street don't like it. And so that was quite a discussion. People say, and they are probably right, that things like the big tunnel, the Gotthard, this is here, yes, that this might get a new tunnel there somewhere in the future, and there will be more trucks going there, and we should do it on the railway and not on trucks. And well, I think they are right. The capacities of the streets will get extended. There will be more roads, and there will be roads with higher capacities. This is a matter of fact. And it's always the problem. There is too much traffic now. You expand the street, there will be some more people taking this road now because it's not clocked anymore. There's no traffic anymore. So people think, oh yeah, it's better now. It's easier. It's not so tiring. Let's take the car. And we are faster again because, of course, you take the train, for example, to Zurich here. You normally take the train because you just get stuck with your car in the city of Zurich. Most times, and at the highway the same. So you take the train. On the other hand, you have to stand in the train because it's completely filled too. So what's now the point? Should we have to build more railroads, or we can build more roads, or we could build both. Well, some people still think Switzerland is a poor country, but there's so much money here lying around. We could technically pay for both, but of course people normally oppose this because they want the money at their side and all the money. But that's a general discussion, you know it. So anyway, ecological things, they have a point. People saying there will be less railroads built if there is more money for the streets probably have a point, but at the other hand, it's the other way around, it's quite about the same. And after all, the money will be spent, probably for something. And at least the road is something we can actually use. You know, if they build other stuff, they already have built stuff which simply aren't for the public. So this is the better choice. I don't know. So it's sort of, you can say anything about it. Everything is sort of right. But afterwards, we don't have a choice. We have to repair the roads and we have to repair the railroads. We have to get new cars for the new coaches for the railroad. We have to get space for buses, for public buses too, so they use the streets. Nah, there is no clear conclusion. And the third one was probably about money, about taxes. I pointed out in my short, and it was a short video. This one is terribly long by now. Third one was about the tax system. Countries in Europe, about the OECD, probably spell it in English, Organization for Commerce, Collaboration, something like, and Economy, I think. They decided that they don't accept some tax systems anymore, some ways to give money to the rich and make the less rich pay for it. So the middle class make the little middle class pay and make lower taxes for big companies, actually. And now Switzerland has to replace this system, and they actually, of course, they want to replace it by a system which does equally lower taxes for the big companies and make the middle class pay for it. This idea did not change, of course, but some people say it wasn't only not changed, but they would do it even more with the new system than they did before. And then the discussion went on different levels, like if you say no now, the OECD will put us on a blacklist and so on, and they will do it the next day. If we say no today, they will do it tomorrow. Yeah, of course. You know, there are so many countries in the OECD wanting to lower taxes for the big companies too. After all, the problem that the OECD has, I guess, is that every country actually wants to attract the big companies. And the big companies are moving from one country to the other in a matter of weeks anyway. So it does not so much depend on what the country is doing. So it's always this, everybody claims to know what the big companies and the OECD, big organizations and the big countries like China, like Russia, like USA, and whatever, what they will be doing if we say no or yes. So I personally think nobody really has got a clue. That's politics. It doesn't so much matter if somebody has got a clue or doesn't know anything about it. So it should be a close race. That's another bunch of people saying a lot about the future. And we all know how well it worked in the USA last year. Yeah. They have been wrong in Switzerland for a couple of times too now. So we will see. But that's the tax problem and the problem that Switzerland is not actually independent from everybody around. We have to stick to OECD standards at least to some extent, to the least extent possible, as all the other countries in there to do too. So a couple of results are in, and it says that the tax reform is sent down. This is is quite sure. Financing of the federal streets will get accepted. And the third one, yes, people in the third generation getting the Swiss passport a bit easier should be accepted too. It's not at 100% now, but it's close enough that probably this will be the final result. So, thank you for watching anyway, and see you later in the next video.